It's very interesting to see how relatively obscure games can leave a major impact on different cultures. Of course, in Latin America, you have King of Fighters that took off and became huge, as opposed to Street Fighter and the rest of the world. You have, games like Mortal Kombat that spawn out of the US and appeal to American sensibilities and yet never really take off in Japan. It's very interesting to see how different demographics respond differently to different games. For a lot of people, Congo's Caper is a relatively obscure Super Nintendo game that is considered inferior to the others in its series, Joe and Mac 1 and 3. This is technically Joe and Mac 2, but from where I'm standing, this is by far my favorite in the series. Not only because I really love the gameplay and the action, but because, of course, it was the only one I had growing up. So as a result of that, my perspective, and the perspective of everyone in my family, is that this is a game that never really got a proper follow up or a sequel. I think for a lot of more experienced players, Congo's Caper comes off as relatively basic. It's not as hard as Super Mario Bros. It's kind of simplistic. It's not very challenging. It's not very long. And yet, if you're a younger player coming into this, what you're greeted with is a very appealing visual design, great mechanics, an amazing character, a really fun, exciting prehistoric world, and a core conflict that's easy to understand and relate to. Everything was peaceful until things changed. Now this might seem kind of simplistic by today's standards, but at the time, this was a shockingly, really well presented, interesting kind of setup. It really gets your imagination, invested in the world. It's very Super Mario Bros. Esque with, the girl getting kidnapped and the item that makes you become more powerful. But at the same time, it has a little bit more personality and charm that really gives it its own unique identity. Simply showing the characters evolving and spending time together really gets your imagination going. It really gives you this feeling that this is something unique and special and that it means something, even if you don't know necessarily what it is. When the girl is kidnapped and you start your adventure, you get this you have this feeling that there's some higher purpose for her kidnapping, and you're never quite given an explanation as to why she was kidnapped. Was it because she evolved? Is there some other reason for it? It just doesn't really, nothing's really explained to you, but that's what makes it so appealing. You're told enough to get invested in the setting and the world, but it's this very short minute long intro. And when it's through, when you finally start playing the game, you have your objective in mind. It's weird to say this on a YouTube channel that's dedicated towards Nintendo content, because I think a lot of people would assume that I have this deep attachment to Princess Peach, but honestly, one of my all-time favorite damsels in distress in any video games ever is the girl in this, because look at her. Isn't she adorable? And the way she bounces up and down when you save her, she looks so happy. When she gets kidnapped again, halfway through, you really feel the character is really in danger. This thing is really out to get her. And not only that, this time he has friends. And now you have to go through 4 entire worlds of levels to get her back, to beat the bosses, and to find out where she is. The game has this really good, engaging sense of progression where it starts off really strongly, it sets up the core concept, and then over time it introduces new levels, new mechanics, new level themes, and it constantly delivers new ones throughout. You will never see a level repeated in this game. You can argue that a lot of them are very short and simplistic, but at the end of the day, each individual world has its own unique theme, its unique boss, its unique layout. They have unique gimmicks and features, enemies sometimes, and it all culminates in this really exciting, memorable, engaging boss fight. I was the only one in my family who could get to this final boss back in the day, and I never could beat it. It wasn't until way later that I finally came back and beat this thing. But when I finally did, I was greeted with this amazing ending screen and was just came away feeling that the game is, for me anyway, an all-time classic. It's everything I enjoy in a 2D platformer. It has unique level design. It has fun combat, fun visual enemy designs. It has a unique theme. We don't have a lot of caveman themed video games. So seeing a bunch of dinosaurs and monkey people running around fighting cavemen, like, it was very appealing to me as a concept. And the simple fact of the matter is, in that specific regard, this game has never really been topped. I really love the whole vibe and personality of Congo's Caper. And to this day, it feels like we've never really gotten something quite like. I feel like Congo's Caper is a really excellent example of a game that would be easily overlooked by NES fans back in the day, because those guys were older. They grew up in, like, the 8-bit era. They were all about, like, hardcore, like, 2D platforming. They grew up on the classic Mega Mans, Castlevanias, Ninja Gaidens, and stuff like that. For them, Congo's Caper would have been like a very simplistic action game. But for me, someone who was a little bit younger, someone who grew up in the Super Nintendo era, this game is exactly what I wanted at the time. Because it is quite a bit easier than NES games, but what that amounts to really is that younger, less experienced players can play it. Congo's Caper is something that I was able to get to the very end to, not quite beat, at a fairly early age, when I'm fairly sure I would never have been able to do the same for something like Super Mario Bros. 3 or Castlevania or Ninja Gaiden or what have you, right? Congo's Caper is a fairly solid entry-level platformer with fun, interesting level themes, great visual design, and this all of these really fun mechanics that just make it a blast to play. Nobody in my family played it as much as I did, but all of us really liked it. Like, plenty of us would run through the first 4 levels and beat that first boss and get to the second act. Like, it wasn't until the second act that everyone started getting filtered. But, like, the game is reasonably challenging to people who don't spend a lot of time playing video games. And it's not as if, like, you have to finish the game to have a good time with it. Like, even today, like, all of us kind of look back on the game fondly and remember it, even though that, I'm the only one who's ever beaten it. And that took me, that didn't happen until I was way older. So to me, that's a really strong indication of, how something like this can resonate with a relatively niche audience, because this was a game we played a lot. Maybe not as much as, like, Donkey Kong Country. Actually, Donkey Kong Country is the only game I think we ever played more of. Yeah, that and Mortal Kombat 2. So, like, this was, like, third. Like, out of all the Super Nintendo games we had, all the ones we played, the ones we spent the most time playing with together was this one. And that's a very strange thing to say, but it makes sense when, like, you realize that, like, most people aren't enthusiasts. They don't play everything that comes out. They don't buy everything that gets made. Like, they just spend their time playing whatever's available, whatever they pick up. And, there were a handful of, like, bad games we owned, Batman Forever, things like that, like Super Tanks, but Congo's Caper kind of sticks out as just being this, like, really, really solid platformer. This game that I still, like, boot up and play through, like, regularly. And it's something that, like, is absolutely one of my all-time favorite Super Nintendo games. Not because necessarily because it's the best, or like it's the, or because, like, I think it's better than other Super Nintendo games. Like, I just like it for what it is. And at the end of the day, that is the most important thing about any video game. That you
enjoy it for what it is.